Welcome to Morfanime. I'm your fan of more anime. How's everybody doing? Yes, I finally did it. I've been reviewing One Piece for over a year now, and recently been dabbling in the One Piece movies. I have completed Strong World, Film Gold, Film Z, Stampede, and ever since I started reviewing the movies, I have been getting constant comments about how I need to watch One Piece Film 6. And it's called, the title of the movie officially is Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. Yeah. Everyone kept saying, you gotta watch this movie. You gotta check it out. It's one of the best One Piece movies. It's where things get real. And it had a weird look to it. I googled images of it. I was like, what is this? It's hard to see what it is out of motion. In just a still frame, you're like, why does One Piece look so weird? Who drew this? But wow, did it look unique. It looked really cool. This is my review, by the way, for Film 6. It looked really interesting and actually reminded me a lot of this Digimon movie I watched as a kid. I cannot remember the name for the life of me, but it had that same look to it. Like the lines were real thin. There was so much motion going on in this movie. This movie shocked me in a lot of ways. It is crazy the emotional whirlwind I went through watching this movie. The Baron has got to be one of the most interesting movie villains of all time, that I've ever seen, at least. From a long-running anime that gets a movie, like one of the best villains I've ever met. This guy's not even like that intimidating. He's obviously the villain when you meet him. He's got that evil mustache and whatnot. He kind of reminds me of the villain from the Adventure on Nebulandia, the way he's designed. But this guy is real cool, I'd have to say. Not intimidating, like I said, physically, but once you see how he fights, he's got this bow and arrow. He's an archer, which is also really cool. There's not really a ton of archers in One Piece that have really been the main focus, like the main villain of an arc. I've always thought an archer would have been cool on the crew, but we already got Usopp and he uses the slingshot. But this dude's got a bow and arrow and he knows how to use it. But the movie starts. Let's just start from the very beginning. The movie starts just like a regular One Piece film would start. The pirate crew is on the sea. They're reading this invitation that's like, come one, come all, pirates among pirates, come to this festival island. It reminded me a lot of One Piece Stampede that I just recently watched, because they went to this pirate festival, but this is like Festival Island. Come on down to this festival. Only the best pirates are invited, and we're going to have a spa, and women, and food. So Chopper's just like, food? And Sanji's just like, women? And Nami's like, spa? And they're like, we're in! And then our Usopp is like, seems like a trap, you guys. And nobody listens to what Usopp has to say. They could have avoided this whole catastrophe if they had just listened to Usopp from the beginning, because, spoilers, it's a trap. So they ignore Usopp's warnings. Nico Robin is down for anything. Zoro just wants to know what Luffy wants to do, because he is the captain. Which I appreciated that moment where Zoro's like, what do you want to do, Luffy? And Luffy's like, what was that first part? And he's just like, pirates among pirates, and we're pirates, so let's go on this adventure. Let's go. Let's do this. We're pirates and we should go to this, because it says the best pirates among pirates, and we're pirates. So that's the beginning of the plot of this movie, and you're just like, okay, that seems like something Luffy would do. At first, it almost feels like a filler adventure, a really good one, and it looks gorgeous, and there's some really funny moments at the beginning with the crew interacting with each other. Classic One Piece humor. By the way, this is the first time I've sat down and actually watched the One Piece in its Japanese dub, or the original, in sub version. I usually watch the English dub. I really enjoy the English dub from One Piece. I have the impression that a lot of people do not. But I think they do a great job dubbing the One Piece anime, so I watch it in the dub so I can enjoy the visuals, I can do other things while I'm watching it. And so this was a challenge for me, but I knew I am such a One Piece fan, I would watch anything good that's One Piece, even if I have to read the whole time. I mean, most of the time I'm reading One Piece anyway, manga form, but this is a visual medium. But I gotta say, the Japanese dub, would you call it a dub even though it's the original, is very, very good. I enjoyed that. I don't think I'll be making the switch over, but I'm not against going back and watching these old One Piece movies that don't have a dub. I enjoyed this. It was a great time. It made me focus in, for one. I couldn't look away from the screen and check my phone or anything. I had to just zoom in and be like, all right, bring it. Come on. Bring me all the knowledge you got for me, movie. So the crew arrives on this so-called festival island thingy, and they can't find anything. There's nobody else there. You're just like, okay, obvious trap. But then I think it was Chopper that was like, did you hear that? And then Luffy's like, it's over there. And they end up finding this like giant beige area and it looks like women, but it turns out to be dudes dressed up like women, and Sanji's pissed. And then you see the Baron. He's like, welcome, pirates, to this awesome island. But if you want to enjoy all the amenities, you have to go through the trials. And you're like, what? What? Even Nami's like, no, this says spa. Read fine print. He's like, yes, the spa and the massage room and the drinks and the women and the food. You'll get it all after you pass the trials. Luffy's the only one of them. It's like, yeah, let's do this. Let's go. And come on, guys. And the crew's like, no, we're not going to do this. This could become dangerous. And they're just completely against the idea, except for Robin and Zoro, who are just waiting for their captain's orders. But Sanji, Chopper, Nami, all giving Luffy scuff. And eventually Luffy just says, I'm not worried. And they're like, why aren't you worried? He's like, because I know you guys will do great. You guys will be fine because I believe in you. And that's when Nami and Chopper and Sanji are like, yeah, Luffy believes in us, so we gotta believe in ourselves. I thought that was a cool captain moment that only Luffy could have done, and I thought that was cool. I really enjoyed that. Luffy is overexerting, he's got all this energy, and it is interesting as well because this is an older movie. So there is no Frankie and there's no Brooke. This is around the Skypiea arc. Or honestly, I bet you $1 million this was made around the same time as the Davy Back fight arc, the Long Ring Long Land arc, because these trials they have to go through feel oddly familiar. They're really goofy, wacky races type trials. The first trial turns out to be catching goldfish, where Usopp raises his hand. He's like, I can do that. I'm the greatest goldfish catcher of all time. And Zoro even comments, he's like, Usopp just wants to do it because he learned it was an easy trial and it's not dangerous at all. He's like, no. And Chopper's like, are you really a master goldfish catcher? He's like, no, that was a lie. So he admits to his own lie. I've never seen Usopp do that. So quickly, at least. And he ends up having to fight or face one of the Baron's crewmates. This dude, actually, by the way, every one of the Baron's crewmates, or at least the inhabitants of this island, have this little leaf on their head. And at first I was like, no big deal. There was people with wings in Skypiea. I think a little leaf on their head isn't a big deal. I'm assuming these people just evolved to have a little leaf on their head. I didn't think twice about the little leaf on their head, but it turns out it's a big fucking deal. This dude comes up. I can't remember his name. Something, doesn't matter. Dude comes up and he's like, I'm gonna catch the goldfish. Turns out the goldfish is massive. Thing comes out of the water. This dude that's working for the Baron pulls out a giant fish net, and they're like, what are we gonna do? We gotta catch him. But it turns out you just need to put the goldfish in these floating buckets. There's 2 buckets, 2 different colors, and the first person to put this giant goldfish in the bucket wins. This dude looks like he's gonna get it, and Usopp can't really do anything. He can't really catch this thing. Sanji actually jumps in and does a badass kick into this goldfish, which, by the way, the goldfish was atrocious looking CGI mess. But this movie came out in 2005, and for 2005 standards, it looked pretty good. For now standards, bad CGI with this goldfish thing. I was like, just draw the goldfish. Or just have a different kind of fish. Whatever's easier to draw. Sanji comes up and kicks it. Zoro tries to cut it. They tell him it's illegal. And he's like, what do you want me to do? And he ends up like hitting it with I think he ends up hitting it with his hilt or something. The back of the sword or the sheath he ends up hitting it with. Eventually they end up winning because the Baron's guy has his big net and he throws the fish down and it's about to go into his bucket, and Nico Robin, the best girl, was like, oh no, son, and makes a net of arms and bounces the fish out almost into their bucket, but it lands near their bucket, and then Chopper goes all puffball defense point, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember it right now. Something point where he's all big puffball, bounces it off himself into the bucket. Straw Hats win. They're stoked. They're going to go have a good time at the spa. Nope. The Baron is a sore loser and tells them there are more trials ahead, people. And they tell him there's a second trial. And they're like, why? We won the first one. He's like, 'cause there is. And so the crew decides to bounce. They're like, we're leaving. No, Luffy, we're not taking part with any more of these trials. They run away. Or they walk away and they can't find the ship now. They're like, this jungle is all closed off now. The landscape is a little different. There's this weird, atrocious CGI POV shot. It's kind of cool because it's like Nami's point of view and she's like looking at her hands and looking over at Luffy in this weird CGI jungle. It just didn't look right at all. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest you should see it because it's one of my favorite One Piece movies at this point. Any criticism I give it is just me finding flaws, and that's what I'm here to do. The POV idea was cool because you kind of got to see life through Nami's eyes, but it was weird because she was like turning left and there's Luffy over there. It's like almost like one of those 3D games that you get. What are those goggle thingies? But whatever. They end up trying to leave, but then running into the Baron again. And the Baron's like, we're going to start the second trial, motherfuckers. And he has these old ladies and old dudes. And they're like these little people. And they're like, we got to play the ring toss game. And if you want to win, you have to get a ring across your opponent. Like throw a ring on them. And these little short old people are really hard to get a ring on. Obviously, they're cheating. Very similar to the Davy Back fight there in those ways. There's cheating going on, but there's like a secret evil thing happening underneath these fun games. Nami and Usopp basically volunteer to be part of this, and Sanji does as well. He's like, I'll go with you, Nami. And someone had the bright idea of putting Zoro with Sanji, who they were already on bad terms, but now they have to work together, and they have to be on these speedboats which I don't believe were powered by dials. And they were on these speedboats, and Usopp and Nami were on a speedboat. I wish Frankie was there, because there's a shipwright on one of the old people's boats that keeps fixing their ship when Zoro and Sanji break it, and every time they fix it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's like this crazy, massive ship, and you're just like, what? How is that possible? Where are you getting the materials? But it would have been cool to see Frankie and Usopp as a duo on these boats, and every time he needs a modification, Frankie whips it up. But Frankie, alas, was not part of the crew yet. It was pretty fun. I think my favorite part was seeing Zoro and Sanji work together. They're always a fun pairing to watch bicker and whatnot. You can tell the whole time this game was designed to frustrate the opponents, because he wants to drive a wedge through the Straw Hat Crew's familia. While this is happening, Nico Robin is out exploring, Chopper's out exploring, Luffy's out exploring, and he finds this explorer guy with a little mustache, like a little Charlie Chaplin mustache, and he tells Luffy, he's like, you gotta get out of here, the Baron's a terrible person, and I used to be the leader of a crew, and the Baron took my crewmates. I think he tells him that later. They have a little meeting like 3 times throughout this movie. But Luffy's kind of like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Luffy does seem a little out of it. I was almost hoping there was like a gas or a devil fruit ability, making it so the crew just isn't acting, they're not all quite there, because Luffy, this is a much younger, inexperienced Captain Luffy as well. So the fact that he's trusting his crew to do whatever they need to do to have a good time, doesn't sense any danger here, is not against Luffy's character. It just felt like he would be like, why is my crew fighting? And why is the Baron so like secretly evil? I don't know. I know it wasn't that obvious, I guess. It was a really good movie. It was solid. This was an 8.5 out of 10 for me, for sure. But the second trial, Usopp and Nami are riding their boat, and the opponents set their boat on fire. They pull out these boxes that are like emergency kit. Nami opens hers, she gets some cups, and she's like, what am I going to do with these coffee cups? And she starts putting water onto the flames. Usopp opens his, and it turns into this hand glider, and it like attaches itself to his body. The wind catches Usopp's out into the sky. Nami looks up, and she assumes that Usopp has turned on her and left her to die in this boat by herself. Doesn't even ask him, like, what was that? She kind of does, but then she ignores him. It would have been an easy fix for this argument if Usopp was just like, no, the thing got on my chest. She assumed he left her behind. It is, at the time, it is kind of an Usopp thing to pull out an invention that he came up with right then and there and try it out without saying anything. So that there drives a wedge right there between Nami and Usopp, and I don't think they did too much to make Zoro and Sanji fight. They were already fighting with each other, and then the old guys were all messing with them and making them run into each other while they were fighting on the boats, trying to get the rings on them. And I don't think they needed to make them fight, because they were already fighting. It didn't seem much different after they were like, I don't like you. I still don't like you. But it was fun watching them destroy the ship over and over again for the shipwright just to fix it. Eventually, the Straw Hats do win this when Usopp gets control of the hand glider, comes down and puts the last ring on the last old guy, who was pretty tough actually, who was able to give Zoro a run for his money. So the crew wins the second round. Chopper ends up running into a bunch of a family that's on the island as well as that explorer guy. This family has been hiding from the Baron. Turns out, yeah, they came to this island as well because they probably got the same brochure, and nope, not good. This Baron was trying to capture them, but they've been hiding in this graveyard that Chopper found. During this time, what's his name? Sanji ends up in a cooking battle on this giant grill. They're like skating across. I think they have ice on their feet or something. They're skating across this grill, or butter pads, and they're cooking this crazy. It's almost where they cook in front of you at a Japanese restaurant. They're trying to make the perfect meal. which was hilarious because when they do, Luffy like jumps into it like a pool, and Zoro decides to get up. He's like, "Ooh, we're eating now," and Sanji's like, "No, you can't have any of my food," even though Sanji would feed his worst enemy. That's where I drew the line. When Sanji told Zoro, "You can't have any of my food because I'm still mad at you for not watching me cook and for being a dick at the second challenge," that didn't fit Sanji's character. Even if he was mad at Zoro, he would still feed him. Nobody goes hungry around Sanji. That's a big no-no there. I think that might have been the biggest out-of-character moment for me. And eventually, Robin goes off to find this flower she heard about because she was interrogating some of the people who work on the island. And the Baron finds her. He's like, "What are you doing?" And she basically tells him straight out, "I'm looking for the lily carnation, this legendary flower that's supposedly on this island, but I haven't found it." And he's like, "Come with me," eventually. Also, by the way, he's got this like inconspicuous living flower on his shoulder that's just like this little smiley daffodil. I don't know. It's like, "Hey." I think it says a couple words in like a cute voice. He ends up capturing Chopper and the family by shooting Chopper with a bow and arrow through the chest, it looked like. Just an arrow came out of nowhere and took Chopper out. Then he ends up feeding the giant plant. There's a giant plant on this mountain on the island. He feeds Robin and Chopper to it, and eventually the rest of the crew is back after, eating Sanji's food, chilling. They're wondering where Robin and Usopp actually gets attacked as well. I can't remember exactly how, but he gets captured as well, just walking into the wrong room. Sanji's mad at everybody. Luffy doesn't know why everybody's mad, and where's the rest of his crew? He's starting to go, "Ooh, I wasn't paying attention." Like I said, it kind of would have been cool if there was if the Baron had a devil fruit ability that made everybody tense or something. Tense fruit, or the anger fruit. And that was why the crew was just so tense with each other. I know he was driving a wedge through them, and I know they weren't as family yet, because it wasn't necessarily, it was still pretty early on in their cruise around Skypiea Davy back time. So, I mean, they still barely knew Robin. Robin was still calling Chopper Doctor. Sadly, Robin doesn't get a lot of big moments in this movie, other than just being cool as a cucumber. Eventually, the third challenge comes up, and Sanji and Zoro run off like, "Forget your challenges, we're going to find the crew, and we're getting out of here." They bounce, and the Baron's like, maybe they should have stuck around for the third trial, because it's we're going to shoot you in the face trial. And then all his crewmates pull out guns, and they start firing at him, and everything's going wrong. Nami was this must have happened earlier, but there was a really freaky moment. I'm sorry to go back. Nami's talking to one of the Baron's crewmates who's sitting there with the little leaf on his head, and he's talking to her about how he knows the Pirate King, Goldie Roger. He's like, "We ran into him just last week, right before the big storm." And Nami's like, "What are you talking about? The Goldie Roger? He's been dead for 20 years. And he's just like, "What? But we saw him right before the storm that ravaged our ship, and we all died." And then he looks up, and his face is all zombified. It looks like he's a decayed corpse, and he's like, "What's going on?" And then we skip forward to the rest of the crew getting attacked by guns, and they're running, and Sanji ends up getting captured, and Zoro ends up fighting this other kid that's from the crew that has a skateboard. He looked very defined. This kid's fighting with Zoro for a hot minute. Zoro is like, "This is nothing, you're just a little kid." Onigiri cuts the kid. Kid doesn't bleed. Kid turns zombified a little bit, and Zoro tries again, even harder, cuts him with an onigiri style attack, and he's like, "What are you?" And eventually the Baron catches what's going on, catches Zoro, and the little kid goes up to the Baron. He's like, "Why didn't I bleed or die or feel pain, Baron?" He's like, "'Cause you're super strong." It was pretty dark, and you can kind of sense how sad the Baron was. Like, this This point when Nami's talking to the guy at the bar and his face goes all zombified, from that point on, there's almost a complete U-turn in the vibe. Like when we were watching it up to that point, the halfway mark, I was laughing, having a good time. The story was fun. The challenges were fun. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was fun. It was peak One Piece humor. Then, when the zombified stuff started happening, it went the complete opposite way. There was no time to adjust. I remember just being dead silent for moments in this movie. And that wasn't even the scariest part of this movie, or the freakiest part of this movie, visually. Later, after everybody gets captured except for Luffy, I can't remember how Nami got caught. Everybody gets captured and absorbed into this giant plant. Luffy runs into the mustache guy again, and he explains the whole deal. He's like, my crew was taken from me. You might get taken too. And Chopper, when he gets absorbed, the family that was with him, like, leave him behind. They're like, we can't do this, we gotta run. And they call the dad a coward. Not a big deal, but it does happen. And Luffy's like, well, I'm gonna go save my crew. Luffy goes out there, half-cocked, and he goes after the Baron. Before he can even hit him the first time, the Baron is just like a sniper with this bow and arrow, which I believe is made out of the plant. It takes Luffy's arm all rubber-like. This was visually my favorite action scene when Luffy's arm got pinned against the wall, and then Luffy tries for the left and his other arm gets pinned, and then he tries for a leg and his leg gets pinned and his other leg gets pinned, and Luffy's like, okay, gum gum bell, and he pulls his head back and he comes at him, but then I think the Baron ends up shooting him back down again, and it's not enough, he can't even reach it. I think he stretches his neck to the full gum, and he goes full gum neck stretch, and then it gets snapped back, and the Baron's about to finish the job. Before he can, the little mole man, mustache guy, pulls him down, saves his life. Luffy is just distraught. His crew's been absorbed. He assumes they're all dead now. That family that's with them that somehow has escaped the Baron for so long. Turns out one of their kids, I assume, has observation hockey, or a version of it, because she's like, no. Your friends are still here, Luffy. And your name's Luffy, right? Because I keep hearing your friends say, Luffy, help me! Luffy, help! Luffy! They're in there. They're still conscious. The plant hasn't absorbed them yet. You have time. So luckily this little girl is here for this, because Luffy doesn't have that kind of hockey yet. I think at some point he hears them. Luffy goes up for round 2, and he's like, alright, I'm gonna save my family. He comes in, he starts beating the shit out of that plant. It's the CGI plant thing. He's punching the crap out of it. It's going nuts. It's actually visually really cool. The best CGI I've seen in a One Piece film. He's punching it. Luffy thinks he's won. I thought he won. The Baron's just like, He's like, where's my family? And where's my friends? And he's like, they're right here. And then the flower turns all evil and transforms into this Venus flytrap monster. And then these monstrous versions of Luffy's crew come out of the back of the Baron. And it's just like, you can see them like all attached to this thing. Very Freddy Krueger-like. You see the silhouettes of them trapped inside the plant that's attached to the Baron somehow. Luffy's like, fuck, what do I do? Luffy gets taken down by a shit ton of arrows. I think that giant plant thing visually looked badass. The giant plant thing turned into a bunch of arrows. So I don't know why. And the plant was always on the guy or something. I'm not sure how that happened. But visually it looked insane. These arrows came down and just pounded Luffy. I don't believe he could have. I believe he got pierced to the ground. I don't know how he survived this. He was on the brink of death. This was the darkest One Piece anything I've ever seen. You think it's over. I was like, is this just going to end with Luffy dying and this is just like a one-shot what-if story or something? Because I'm here for it. Let's do it. Go all in. Make it like sad ending. Like this is like a what-if. I'm here. Let's go. Then the family has been sitting there, and for almost too long, the dad looks down at the little girl who's got this psychic ability, and she's like, I know you're kind of a coward, Dad, but I always believed in you. And then he looks at her and he's like, you did? I sure didn't. And he comes and gets the bow and arrow that the fucking Baron had thrown across the room, or Luffy had gotten and thrown it, and picks up the arrow. Perfect shot. This dad pulls it out. The arrow goes right through the head of this plant, killing it. All the people, zombies, turn into plants again. Not even bodies falling on the floor. They just turn into plants. The Baron's just completely sad. He's like, I can't, you will not be forgiven for this, you son of a bitch. Luffy gets back up. He's barely alive. But he goes up to the Baron and just punches him so hard it goes black and white. The screen, it was very reminiscent of when Luffy punched the Celestial Dragon for the first time at Sabaody. Like, exactly the same shot. Punched him so hard that I believe the Baron died. Maybe because I'm assuming he died because the plant had faded away, and then that was kind of keeping him alive? Possibly? Because I don't think Luffy would just kill. But he punched him so hard, then he went to sort of heaven, and he was like talking to his dead crewmates. He's like, you should never have brought us back as zombie things. You should have just went off and made more friends. And he's like, more friends? I could do that? Then Luffy and the crew all end up together. The crew like forgot what even happened. And Luffy's just like, you guys are okay. Good. But yeah, that is my review for One Piece Film 6. I think the family and the old man with the mustache, they went off and became their own crew, which is kind of cool. They kind of needed a captain and he needed a crew. I think it would have been really cool. I had a theory when I was watching it. The guy with the mustache, he had a little hat on. And I thought, what if he took the hat off at the end and had a little plant stem? It turned out to be one of them. Or he was like working for the Baron or something. Or at the end I was like, what if like he did that and then he faded away? And he's like, I was actually had sentience and I wanted to end this. Or he was one of the crewmates. Secretly, he was one of the crewmates of the Barons, and the Baron couldn't get rid of him, but he was still on the island causing havoc. He's like, I want to end this. I'm the only one here that realizes we're not really alive anymore. But it was cool to see the family have a happy ending. I was also hoping the dad, who didn't have a lot of character development, who came in with that bow and arrow shot at the end. If you had told me that the villain would be taken down, or at least the plant villain would be taken down by this random father, captain, pirate man, I wouldn't have believed you. I didn't hate it. It was really cool, like this, the daughter seeing the dad be bait-ish for once. But at the same time, I almost wish he made the sacrifice. Like, he ran in, and the plant, like, bit him so hard he was bleeding out, and he took out the plant. The movie was darker than that, so they could have done something where the dad made the sacrifice to save everybody. But, alas, that's fine. I would have been fine with a crazy dark ending. But a happy end, after all that darkness we had to go through to get to the ending, I was pretty happy having Luffy there just like, I did it. Thank you, Mustache Man. There's actually a really cute moment where when Luffy's actually winning the fight, he looks back at the Mustache Man who had showed him his like crew like thing where he goes like, yes, we are the Mustache Pirates. Yeah. I really enjoyed this movie. Solid. If you haven't gone back and watched it because it's not dubbed, or because it's an older film, or because it looks weird, you're making a big mistake. Because I would say this movie is in the same level as Film Z. I think it's better than Stampede. Hands down. I think visually it's unique. The story is unique. It's shocking. It surprised the shiz out of me throughout the entire watch through. I didn't know where it was going. There were such sharp lefts and rights. If you like the Davy back fight, there was a few moments of that kind of humor at the beginning. But then if you didn't like it, it's fine because there's an amazing story in this movie, an amazing villain. This guy might be my favorite movie villain thus far. Him and maybe Shiki. This dude was cool. Like, for a random non-canon character that came up with this bow and arrow and whatnot, I was like, this guy's cool. And his shots were on point. I was worried when Chopper got shot by that arrow. I was like, whoa, this is a movie, I know. But calm down. I was disappointed that Robin didn't get her own battle to fight. Like, she did help out with her powers a little bit, and she did some investigating. She was the only cool, level-headed Straw Hat, like per usual. But it would have been cool to see her get into a battle or break some necks, like she does. It was confusing seeing Sanji not want to feed everybody in his crew. I'm watching those inconsistencies. But damn, was this a good movie, and it was a damn good time. I want to start a petition right now in the comments. Please say yes, I want this movie to be English dubbed. It doesn't need it. The Japanese is amazing, but as someone who enjoys the English dub, I think this movie could easily go from an 8, 8.5 to a 9, 9.5 for an English dub consumer like myself, who can really sit in and enjoy Christopher Sabat, who does a solid job as Zoro. Amazing job, matter of fact. And plenty other amazing voice actors that do the English dub. I think they should go back and dub some of these films for people like me and re-release them on Blu-ray and sell them for way too much, and I'll buy them all. And I'm here for it. This is Morfanime. What did you think of my review? What do you think of Film 6? The Baron and the Secret Island thing. I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad you guys suggested in the comments over and over and over. Watch Film 6. Watch Film 6. If you have any other suggestions from the other movies that are really good, there's still films 1 through 5. I would love to know what those are. Don't tell me what they're about, but tell me if they're worth my time and worth me reviewing. This is Morfanime. Please subscribe, please like, please share. I'll talk to you later.